Hi, welcome to this tutorial on how you can get started using the Azure Quick Starts deployment VM that is called the GC Cloud Accelerators Azure Development VM. So you can quickly get going in deploying resources and infrastructure in Azure. What you need to do first, you're going to need to have access to this project in GitHub under github.com Canada-CA accelerators _accelerator-Azure. So once there, you'll be able to find a folder called Quick Starts. Clicking in it, you'll then be able to go to the development VM. And in there, you're going to find a readme.md file. So if you open up this file, in there, you're going to see a button at the top that will allow you to quickly deploy a development VM that will be fully configured with all of the tools that you will need to deploy infrastructure in Azure. So let's get started with deploying the VM. So how do you do this? You simply click on Deploy to Azure. You select a subscription in Azure that you want to use for the deployment. And you fill in a few fields in a page within the Azure portal. So in this case, I'm going to go and create a new resource group for the virtual machine for the deployment. So I'm going to click Create New. I'm going to call the resource group my dev VM-RG, and we're going to deploy that in Canada Central. I'm going to keep the default admin username, which is devadmin. I'm going to set a password. And here you also have the options to specify a different RDP port, so you can quickly connect to that virtual machine over a restrictive network. For example, if your corporate network is preventing you from accessing Azure on port 3389, you may want to change that port to something else. In my case, I know port 33890 is open across the firewall, so I'll use that as my RDP port for that virtual machine. Once you're done, you select I agree with the terms and then click on Purchase. This will quickly start the deployment of the virtual machine in Azure so that you can easily start deploying. It's going to take a little while, so we're going to wait until the actual completion of the deployment. You're going to see that the notifications will be, you're going to receive a completed deployment when it's done. While it's doing that, you can also go and have a look at the deployment itself by clicking on the resource group. You'll see the components that have been already deployed, and then you can check, clicking on the deployments, you'll be able to find the status of the deployments by clicking on the Microsoft template deploying here, and then you can see what's happening with the deployment. Right now it's at the GC Dev VM creation of the virtual machine. So we'll let it go for a while, and then we'll be back when that step is done. Okay, so now we're done with the installation. So what you're going to want to go and look at to actually get the information about the VM so that you can easily RDP into it, it's under Outputs. Click on Outputs and you're going to get here the fully qualified domain name for the VM, including the port that is tagged along. So you copy this, click to copy, and then you'll go and open up a remote desktop client to connect to the VM. And we're going to copy the string and click connect. We're going to enter the password for, first of all, we need to type the right username. So it's actually called dev admin. So we're going to type /dev admin. And we're going to input the password that we entered during the VM creation. And we're going to click OK. So this will actually connect to the new GC Cloud Accelerators development VM to develop and deploy to Azure. Okay, so we're almost ready. So now at this point, to start to deploy to Azure, you're going to need to open up Visual Studio Code. So double click on it. So Visual Studio Code will start. It will also open up a browser window that we won't need to use. So we'll let this complete. So there's no need to go and look at the default getting started. So we're going to close this. And we're going to maximize the Visual Studio Code window so it's easier to work. One of the things on the development VM that you're going to notice is that we already have copied the library from GitHub so that it's already ready and deployed on your virtual machine. The code that is actually found here is the latest because we're dynamically pulling a copy of this repo when we're building the VM, so it's always up to date. So you can start to deploy your infrastructure in Azure by doing the following. Let's click on deployments and let's go under the demo v3 folder. Here you're going to find that there is a few options. We're going to select at first, because it's the easiest one to try, the MS Firewall folder. We're going to expand it and we're going to go under the demo core MS Firewall-NSG folder. So this is what we're going to deploy first. We're going to go and deploy the core infrastructure that is actually going to use a Microsoft firewall as the front door to the infrastructure in Azure. So how do we do this? You right click on this folder here and you're going to go to the option Open in Terminal, which will now open a PowerShell command line at the bottom of this window. The first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to go and log in to our Azure subscription. So to do this, you're going to type login -Azure RM account. So login Azure RM account. Hit enter. Now you may not see anything and you may be puzzled. The first time it's kind of confusing, but if you minimize or if you kind of shrink this window down, you're going to find that a window was actually open behind it. And this is where you're going to go and log in to your Azure account. So I'm typing my personal MSDN account information. It's a personal account. And I'm going to put in my password. Okay, password is put in there. So now, as you can see, I'm logged into my account. Now I need to also make sure that I'm going to use the right subscription. So in this case, it already did select, but in your case, if you have more than one subscription and you need to change it, here's a quick way to do it. You can type get-azure RM subscription. So here I'm starting to type and I'm hitting the tab key to autocomplete in Azure. So that's going to give me the list of my Azure subscriptions. And as you can see, one of them is disabled, so I can't use this one. So let's pretend I needed to use the second one. So to do that, you would type select -Azure subscription. Again, same thing, I'm hitting the tab key to autocomplete. Oh, it's easier if I type the right thing. Tab key to autocomplete, and then MSDN2. So now that this is done, to start deploying, you simply need to fire up the master deploy.ps1 script. So let's do that. So I'm starting to type, then hit tab, it autocompletes to master deploy.ps1, hit enter, and then the deployment of the infrastructure will start. We'll explain more about the whole process in other tutorials, but a quick run through here, we're copying the parameters files that are found in the parameters folder into a storage account in Azure so that we can get Azure to read those parameters files to deploy the infrastructure that we're going to deploy to build this. We can go and look in the actual Azure portal. So if I go back, I quickly find a way to not get this window, but this one. If I minimize this, we can then go back and see within the resource group that things are going to start now to appear. The demo infra storage account containing the parameters files is now there. It won't be long until we're going to start to see a whole lot of resource groups showing up as the resource groups are going to be built. So if we go back, we can check what's happening. It's at the stage now of starting that infrastructure deployment now that the parameters files have been copied. So it's starting to deploy, and in a few seconds we're going to see a whole list of resource groups that will be showing up in the list. It should be there in a few seconds. Here we go. So now if I go here, minimize this, if I go and look and refresh, now we're going to see that all of those resource groups are created and Azure resources are going to be added into it. So that's a short tutorial on how you can start to deploy within Azure using a development virtual machine that you can easily create to get going. So I hope that was easy and useful. If you have questions, don't hesitate to use the features on the main GitHub website. If we go back on the actual location where that was, if you go back onto the accelerators, you can use the issues section to write about the issues you're encountering, and we'll try to help. Okay? Thank you.